Welcome to another episode of The Second Coming. I'm your host, Jason Keeton, and I'm here with Brother T. Today, we got a big one for you. It's episode 52, our 52nd weekly podcast, and we are so thankful for our community. Thank you for your support, and of course, you can support us right here at support.truethought.org or like and share on socials. Our big thing is we love your interaction. We love the comments. We love the questions. And that's why we have Brother T in the house. Brother T, how's it going today?
Oh man, it's going really well though. It's like one of the most beautiful, it's the most beautiful morning this morning. I was out on a walk this morning and the weather here is just like paradise. I mean, I'm thrilled to be where I'm at, doing what I'm doing, and being a part of the Second Coming podcast, No One Left to Crucify, our 52nd episode. And man, it's been a great year, and I've so enjoyed working with you, Jason, this last year. It's been a ball. It's really been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And today's question comes from my yoga group, and I asked them after class the other day, we were hanging out, and I asked them to write down some really thoughtful spiritual questions for me. And our episode, our podcast, No One Left to Crucify, I picked this one for our episode 52. And the question is, shadow work and the crucifixion within. And the person asks, and I'm not sure who wrote this one, but they asked, are we crucifying parts of ourselves that we weren't meant to resurrect?
That's interesting. All right, let's call in some counsel. Let's call in some guidance. Let's just join together now. Let's take a good deep breath for just a moment as we become centered and attune ourselves a little bit to the upper room. Let's take a good deep breath. So we say thank you, thank you, thank you, Mother, Father, God. We know who we are in truth. We know what we are in truth. We know how we serve in truth. Word, I am word. I am word through this intention. Word, I am word. I am word through this vibration. Word, I am word. I am word through the knowing of myself as word. Word, I am word. I am in the upper room. I am here. I have come. I am known. Behold, I make all things new. It will be so. God is. God is. God is. So as we return to this now moment, and we are joined with all of this goodness and love and support and wisdom. The question is, I'm just going to see if I can circle back here. If I'm getting, I believe the intention of the question is, are we crucifying parts of ourselves? I felt like that was the primary question, but the second part of that you mentioned is there parts of ourselves that will not come back or something like that? Can you unpack that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, I'll grab it. It says, are we crucifying parts of ourselves that were meant to resurrect? So are we crucifying parts of ourselves that we are meant to resurrect? And then it says personal trauma, forgiveness, spiritual transformation, and linking it in.
Okay, well let's just stay with that. The question is, are we crucifying parts of ourselves that were not meant to be resurrected? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's like, yeah, I think so. The exact question was, are we crucifying parts of ourselves we're meant to resurrect?
Well, we are crucifying ourselves continuously, and the part of us that we're crucifying will never be resurrected. There you go. What else do you want to know today? So let's talk about, let's unpack that answer a little bit, right? Well, we have this thing that we've come to discuss now here at True Thought as the default operating system, otherwise known as the ego. Now, the default operating system is a temporary, quote-unquote, operating system like the operating system on your computer. It allows, it's kind of like the gatekeeper and allows other stuff to be processed, it allows stuff to come through, et cetera, et cetera. But the default operating system for us as humans, when we are born, if you will, into form, or transition into form, actually, is that we are reincarnating our soul, which is an aspect of God, and which is the primary aspect of us, the true self that we are. And that's what's being resurrected. That's what's transforming from non-physical to physical form. And so that soul is what is activating the energy of the body, right? The life of the body. But when we come into incarnation, I'm going to go to the first time that a young soul, if you will, a micro droplet of God, the first incarnation, the soul, this is a young soul that is like a baby. It's a child, right? And so the default operating system is what is in place to take care of the body, to make sure that the body is surviving, right? And it is a thought thinking self that we've created, I'll say out of whole cloth, which basically means out of thin air. And so this is an operating system, a thinking self. And so imagine an infant, if you will, it has instinctual programmed reactions. It knows how to feed itself with mother, right? And it knows to go to the bathroom, and but it can't even walk around. It is completely defenseless, which in truth means it's very powerful. And so others circle around it because it can't move to them, so they come to it. That's another example of power, truly, right? And so the point of all that is that self, that thinking self, begins to form as a personality. And it begins to define its world, from its environment through the five senses. And as it matures over the months and couple of years, it begins to even be able to walk around. It now begins to move and begins to explore in its environment. But it is building an operating system that's building a program that is self-defined, and it's based on a couple of parameters. The primary one is specialness. Okay, that's a biggie. And then, of course, it's operating from a perspective of defense, because it feels like the world begins to condition it right away, and it feels like it's vulnerable, and so it begins to operate from the parameter of being fearful, and then protecting itself from its fears, what it imagines to need to be protected from, and starts to build defense systems, and we're going down a big rabbit hole here. But the point of all of this is the personality made up self, right? And it has been given a name by the parents. And it begins to define itself through that naming, and it begins to express itself through its best thinking in each and every moment. And the operating system is what's underneath all of that, that's kind of running the game. That special self, that self-made God-like image, right, is pretending to be God, because it begins to give everything all the meaning that it has. And its primary function is judgment. Which is actually God's role. God's role is to be in judgment. God's judgment is perfect. And the ego's judgment is anything but perfect. It's all made up, right? And it begins to judge everything it's experiencing as good or bad, right or wrong. And then we develop a system where we are giving our power away to other people because we believe that they can protect us even though we're afraid of them. We give our power to them. What we're really afraid of is our own power. These are all things that the ego is dealing with over lifetimes, certainly over decades of any individual lifetime. But eventually, you know, we end up pretty much crucifying ourselves on a regular daily basis, because we first judge ourselves. And then that judgment, we don't like it, we've kind of crucified ourselves, and so then we project it out. Wherever we see somebody else doing something we've judged ourselves for, then we'll say, there they are, you know. There go I, and so now they're wrong, and so I'm going to set up a system. We're going to give our power to a system that's going to create justice in the world. So we've given our power to a system of justice, and that justice defines correction by means of judgment and definition of what's right or wrong, and then punishment, right? More crucifixion, right? The whole thing is based on punishment, crucifixion of self, right? Because we see ourselves as unworthy, and even our religion, some say that we are born sinners. We're not even worthy, much less possible to be loved by God. So we've kind of made God up in our own image, and that's what this ego thing does, right? But that self is not to be resurrected except upon your next incarnation. And you won't resurrect that old personality. You'll create a whole brand new one, start all over again. In the meantime, the ego is doing all this. The soul is actually learning and growing through the experiences of the false self. The ego is a false self. It's not your true identity. And as the soul becomes more and more advanced and mature, and it's never judging, it is learning how to choose love in all situations. And eventually it becomes mature enough, strengthened enough to, I'll put it this way, kind of, you know, take over the driver's seat. So the soul is in the driver's seat, and then now everything begins to change. And the ego kind of gets in the back seat, if you will, and it's still useful, but it's no longer judging, condemning, prosecuting, crucifying you. And you now are experiencing you are expressing in the world of form as your true self. And as Jesus did and said, when you see me, you see the Father, he was saying the personality is no longer in charge. And God, in form, is Christ. So that's the name of the game. And there's no one left to crucify. That's our tagline for the second coming. There's no need to crucify anybody, especially yourself, right? Because once you get in touch with your true self, then you're really in a place of peace and joy. And it's pretty awesome. It's very, very awesome.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And from the soul's point of view, all events are neutral. There is no judgment of good and bad. So that's a great reminder. I think we have time for another one on this episode from the yoga group. This is a good one too for Easter Sunday. It'll stir the pot a little bit. So it says, the death of the old God. And it says, what happens to traditional images of God when they no longer serve us? And explore how people are redefining divinity from punitive judge to loving consciousness, and what that means to spirituality and psychology. So it's kind of a long question, but you got the gist of it? What happens? Yeah. Okay.
So spirituality is changeless. What's changing about it is our perception of it. Because spirituality is a pathway to self-love. It's a pathway to self, capital K, knowing. When you become in union with your true self, then the ego now is moving to the back seat from our last discussion. And so now the voice of God is expressing as you, through you, in form, right? So the spiritual thing about this is awakening to a pathway of truth. And the truth is always true, and it's changeless. It doesn't change up on you at all. And only the truth is true. But it's kind of like a Christmas tree, And at Christmas time, there are many, many, many Christmas trees, and they all look different because everybody has their perception of what to hang on it, right? But when you strip it down to just the tree, the essence of what it is love. On a spiritual pathway, love is what is the only thing that's real. And we can define God as love, but it's kind of tricky to do that because love from an egoic perspective is special. That's where the judgmental God came into play, right? Making God up in our own image, if you will, or the ego's image. But the religions will adjust in time, because if they don't, then those who are on a spiritual pathway will accelerate their influence in the world. And what happens when that happens? Let's just cut to the chase. What was Jesus doing? What was Jesus like? And why were people drawn to him? Because Jesus was the expression of the love of God. Period, period, period. And a spiritual journey is nothing more and nothing less than awakening to your own divinity. And in that awakening, you become as Christ. And in perfect safety, you release all tension. In perfect safety, you dissolve the thinking mind and merge with the perfect mind of peace. And everything you're experiencing now, in time outside of time, you literally become present. And your presence and your being are your purpose. And whatever is manifesting as your experience and form, if you are in the upper room, if you're joined in unity with your true self, then your true self is going to respond to whatever is happening in the most perfect and appropriate way for the joy and love and healing and benefit. And I'm going to say for the forgiveness, the power of forgiveness in every experience that you have from that point on. As you said in a recent podcast, Jason, when you ring the bell, yeah, it doesn't quit ringing, right? You can't erase it. And when you experience your true nature, your true divinity, your true capital I identity, you don't go back. You become as Christ. You become God in form, the expression of love in form. So spirituality versus religion and all the little trappings along the pathway are just things that we're just slowly but surely taking off the Christmas tree. Here's an ornament that we thought that was special. We'll take that one off now. We see that that's just a little trinket. And we're going to let go of all the attachments that we put on that Christmas tree, which is our existence, what we think we are, self-definition. We put all those things on there. And when you get on the spiritual path, I'm using this little metaphor here, or analogy, you start taking things off. And now when you become naked, and you're willing to expose yourself to God in your nakedness, and you're no longer operating in fear, and you're no longer operating in greed, and you're no longer operating in judgment, all you can experience is the ability to see the perfect innocence in everyone and everything. And there's no fear, there's no need for protection, there's no judgment, because judgment and fear are the same thing, literally. And now
I love that. Yeah.
you become that beautiful, pristine life of the Christmas tree, Christ in form, without all the attachments.
I love that. And I love walking through our dimension and working my best, or allowing my best to be Christ in form. Obviously I'm not. I'm making mistakes all the time, but I'm loving the journey. I think this can tie into our last question, and this one's from Lori. She signed her name, and the Christ archetype in modern times. It says, if Christ returned today, would we recognize him, or would we crucify him again, metaphorically or digitally? And she wants to know what it means to embody Christ consciousness in the 21st century. That's kind of what we just were talking about a little bit.
Right. So if Christ returned today, well, Christ is already here. If you're here, if you're hearing this conversation, if you're watching this podcast, Christ is here because you're here. You are the second coming. I am the second coming. Jason is the second coming. The second coming is now. It has been going on for 2,000 years since the first coming. The second coming has been unfolding. And we are it. It's not somebody coming and doing something to us. It's awakening to the divinity that lives within our heart. It's each of us as individuals. So you can revisit the question again for me, Jason. But the first and most important thing is to recognize that Christ has already returned as you. And so when you quit crucifying yourself, no more crucifixion is necessary. Jesus said that was the last useless journey. The crucifixion had nothing to do with sin or wrong or right or any of that bullshit. That was his demonstration that you're not a body. Yeah. And that you can continue to express in form. You continue to reincarnate as form until you awaken to the truth of your divinity. And then as you become as Christ in form, in perfect safety, you are a part of the completion of the second coming. And all of the brotherhood, all of those in form on this planet will and have the full potential. And it's already cast. What God decides is already decided. God is judgment. The only true judgment is God. And that God says, in the Bible it said Adam and Eve fell asleep, but never does it say anywhere in there where they woke up, right? And Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles that we're asleep. We believe that we wake up every morning because all night long we were another place, in another mind. We were still ourselves, but we were completely oblivious to the fact that we were safe at home in bed. And then we wake up and think, oh, this is our reality. Well, it is a reality because it's so well constructed for us for now. But when the mind wakes up one more level, you wake up to your true self. That is your soul. That is your divine nature. That is who you are in truth. That is what you are in truth. That is how you serve in truth, as being Christ in form. That's you as the second coming. No one left to crucify.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Brother T. That's a great message for Easter Sunday, and no one left to crucify. Stop crucifying yourself. Let love in. Thank you, Brother T. And a nice shout out for Toledo Yoga. Thanks, Toledo Yoga, for giving us the questions this week. So that was fun for me. I didn't have to pull them out of my own learnings. So, Brother T, until next week, our 1 year anniversary. Couldn't be more happy to be here with you today. This is an amazing opportunity. Again, please support us, support.truethought.org, or like, share, subscribe on all our socials. Thank you so much for being part of this community. Brother T, have an amazing week.
I'll do my best. In fact, it's already done. All I have to do is just be present.
I love that. I love that. Well, I will see you.
Have a great week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will see you on another episode of The Second Coming. No one else to crucify.
And so it is.